Hey, it's Ben, and this is Drambo by BeepStreet. This video is going to be about p-locking or p-locks or parameter locks, whatever you want to call it. And this is a sort of like a very pivotal feature of Drambo and of the Drambo sequencer specifically. A p-lock is really just a parameter setting, like a knob or a slider or some of the buttons that is set for a specific step in the sequencer. So these are different steps that I have in currently just a 4-beat loop. So it can take a simple sequence like this and just make it more interesting. So it's really a form of automation. But basically every knob and slider and most buttons in here can be p-locked. I'm just going to play around with this for a second so you can get an idea of what it could do. So, to p-lock, you simply hold down on a step. I can't really do this with my mouse. You hold down on a step and then you simply adjust the parameter that you want to change. So you're going to see your sequence fill up with these little red indicators. That means there's a p-lock on the step. If you hold down on the step, the parameter or parameters that are changed are going to light up with this little gold ring, and the knob will snap to the position that it's been locked to. And when you take your finger off, it's going to go away. To set the p-lock, I think I already said this, you just tap down and slide and adjust the parameter. And yeah, it's really that simple. So it can take something as simple as this, a little bit longer of a pattern, and you can really change the sound of instruments and drums and effects and really anything. And you can set specific things to happen, like my trigger. So it's just a super fun way to add a lot of variety to your sequence. And it's very easy to use once you kind of get your mind around how it works. So I'm going to work on this pattern just because there's not quite as much going on. It's just one track. This is what we were working on before. So once you have all your p-locks set up, you might, now it's kind of hard to remember what's on this step. You can see the parameter, but you don't know how it sounds. And you might just want to mess around with it a little bit. So if you go to edit mode by clicking on edit, this turns on step auditioning, which is when you tap on a step, you can hear the parameters on that specific step. Hear all the p-locks and the note. So this becomes a much more straightforward way to figure out what's going on instead of watching the sequence run through and trying to identify, the little red circle means something's being locked on that step. In edit mode, you just tap, and then you can see what parameters are being actively locked on that step. And then you can also edit them here. It's edit mode. So on this step, I don't want that trigger anymore. I'm going to change the length back to, I think, what it's set at. Here, I don't like the feedback on the FM operator set up quite that much. I'm going to get rid of it. If you actually want to get rid of something, you double tap. And it's going to snap back. It's still going to show that gold ring. But then if you click off of that step and come back, it's going to go away. So you can also, on any given step, if you hold down and see that it's locked, you can also double tap. I don't think this will work with my mouse either, so hold down on the step, double tap, take your finger off the step, and then that p-lock is gone. And you'll know it's gone if that's the only p-lock, because the little red indicator is going to go away. Now you can also click on a step in step mode, and you'll see that in addition to the note, the parameter lock shows up as a step component. Now you can't add a p-lock here. You can add, oh, it's gone now. So it used to be there as a parameter lock. It's not even there. So disregard that. So you can't add parameter locks here, but you can remove them from here. So if I don't want the p-lock, I can just drag this out like it's any other module or component, and now it's gone. I don't have a p-lock on that step. So you can easily remove or change p-locks. You can, edit them here. You can go to edit mode, and you can mess around with them. If you just want to get rid of all of your p-locks, you want to start from scratch, maybe duplicate this, and then come up with some different locks. In edit mode, you can select everything or a section just by tapping and dragging, and then instead of clearing the sequence, you can clear p-locks, and that's just going to remove everything. So that's a little bit easier that way. Okay, I'm going to mess with the sequence just a little bit. Okay, so now it's really simple. Let's say I just want long decay on this. So up until now, I've been doing all of my p-locking on a specific step. So maybe this one has a little bit more feedback, so it's changing the waveform a little bit. But you can also set p-locks on any given step, even if it doesn't have an actual note value there. So I could have this a little effect chain. I could kick that in on this step. Can't hear too much of it. So maybe I could make the ratio, which is kind of like the pitch setting on the FM operator. So there's no note here, but I'm still changing the values. And basically what's going to happen is for any lock that you set, let me remove these real quick. So the p-lock value, let's just crank this up. It's going to stay basically in place until either you get another actual step, which is going to revert all of the values back to the default, what you have set up in Drambo, or if you set a ratio, for instance. So on this step, the ratio goes up by double, and then on this step, I'm impacting the feedback. So for your trigged p-locks, once you add in another trig, like here, these p-locks are going to be sort of undone. They're going to go back to normal. For triggerless p-locks, here I'm setting the ratio to double, and then I'm on this step adjusting the feedback. Adjusting the feedback doesn't cancel out the ratio because it's a triggerless p-lock. There's no step there. So extra parameter locks that I add on this step aren't canceling out previous parameter locks. So that's kind of something that you'll want to be aware of, and you can use to just know what's happening in your sequence. What are these called? So that's kind of the basics of p-locks. You set them just by tapping on a step, any step, with trigs, without trigs, and you change the value. If you need to get rid of one, you hold down, and you double tap, and then that parameter will snap back, and the lock won't be there anymore. You get some more advanced control in edit. You can hear the p-locked values. And then you can clear all of your p-locks this way. And then now I'm just going to spend a little bit of time sort of indulging and showing some different like fun ways that you can use these. And I'll probably open up a new project for that. Okay, so I have this very simple sequence set up. I've got just some stuff thrown together. It sounds like this. So not a whole lot going on, just a short loop. And, I've been playing around with the sound, and I have something I kind of like to change it into. So I have my slider morph scene set up with something a little bit more interesting, but that would just, it's a little bit too noisy, too much stuff happening. So I can kind of use my P-locks just to have that sound or elements of that transition come in when I want it there. So I'm going to remove the P-locks or the scene locks completely, just so we can't see the rings around the parameters. So like I can do things like, maybe just mess with the octaves. I could even add in some of that modulation that I was having fun with. So you can, any element in here, any parameter you can change, doesn't matter what you want. And these are just like parts of the synthesis that I'm working on right now. You could also use this for like a wet and dry signal, or like different parts of a mixer. So I have this like decimator that just comes in on the end there, kind of like that. In addition to like knobs and sliders, whether it's the amount of modulation or an actual parameter in here, you can also P-lock like the waveforms and filter type. So that would be like this. And then let's change our waveform. Change our envelope on some of these to be like really short. So there's just so much that you can do, and it instantly takes something that's like really simple and makes it really complex sounding. But it's easy to set up. So same sort of thing with drums. This is like a little bit more of like a extra function of P-locks. You can really use it to almost create a new sound. So I've just got my kick. If we modulate the kick tuning with noise, kind of sounds like a snare almost. I don't want a snare on every single step of this, but from one drum track, I could do, I'll have to kind of figure out how. So we almost get like different drum sounds from this. Just using one track, you can like totally change almost like the instrument that you're using in a way. So just a couple other fun, cool things you can do. I'm going to open up just a new pattern. I'll stay in this project. With Flexi, you can do some really cool things. I'm going to turn this down. I think it's kind of loud. So, of course, with the samplers, you can add in your slices and you can play them back. if you change it to like using Note, it's really easy to play back your samples. But you can also just leave it in offset mode. And I'm going to just add in some random steps. I don't know what this is going to sound like. Well, it won't sound like anything. So even in this view, I can take my offset. This is the orange arrow is the offset. So I can like put in my slices, not slices, but offset setting right here. And we can just see if it sounds like anything cool. Maybe it won't, I don't know. And then I probably have mentioned this before, you might have seen this elsewhere. You can copy steps by holding down on one or selecting a couple and then tapping elsewhere, and it'll just like copy and paste them in. This does not sound good, but you can p-lock the offset from this view, just like any other parameter, offset being this little orange arrow playhead thing. And of course, you can p-lock other sounds here in the Flexi sampler. We'll clear all these. Okay, if we go over to the master track, there's a couple other fun sort of things you can do. So if I wanted to, like, you know, there's a recorder module, and there's no sync setting on here. So I can hit record. It's just going to start recording whenever I tap record, and it's going to keep recording until I think I either hit play or hit record. Yeah, it's just going to keep going. So if I wanted to, like, sync that up, just go to clear, and then these buttons are p-lockable as well. So hold, record. I think I have to do this just with my hands. So now when I hit play, it's going to start recording directly on that lock, and then it's going to stop recording when it gets back to step one. And it'll kind of like override the record, so it won't record over itself. It won't start recording again. And now I can go over to step 2, which has nothing on it. And I can hit play. And I've got like a perfect loop set up. So that is something that you can do. Let me do that. Don't worry about what that was. So some other cool things. Let's add a mixer so I can have like an effect on here too. Okay, so what I really like doing, it's fun, is using this trigger button to like set things up to happen that are not part of the main sequence, that aren't like a part of your note events that you're putting into the sequence, like this. So you can use the trigger, you know, of course you could record stuff in if you wanted to, but it's not going to work very well. Doesn't even look like it worked. But you can p-lock trigs in when record isn't on. And you get, basically you can control any event that you want. Here I'm opening up an envelope and feeding it into the delay so that you only get part of the signal delayed, but you could trigger like a filter to open up. Let's get rid of all of our p-locks here. Okay, so now I could say like on this step, I want this trigger to change. And I could even have it like be different on that one. So if I had this set up and I only wanted these p-locks to happen some of the time on any sequence, for any p-lock, last thing, and then I think I'll wrap it up, on any individual step, you can use the conditional step components, like cycle once every 4 loops. We want this to come in. Or only like 18% of the time. So now it's just going to sound like normal, I think. Or like one time, maybe on a specific scene. So if we're like just on B, I want that step to come in. So now we should definitely hear this one. Yeah. So one last thing. Got ahead of myself, thought I was done. Not quite. You can also p-lock the mixer, or sort of like your main view. So just real quick, it could be something like muting a track, or soloing a track, or messing with the volume. Really, one of the almost the only thing that you can't p-lock is the fader in the scenes. So that's going to look like a solo on this step. And then only thing you need to remember, because these are triggerless, I'm on the main sequencer and there are no trigs usually. When I set a p-lock, like on this one it's going to solo, there's no other step to override that p-lock. So I would just have to either kind of like put in an unsolo here, or if I put a step down, it's not going to change anything. But you can mess with panning, you can mess with volume, really whatever you want. So it's not only something you use on individual tracks, you can use it on sort of like the top level for mixing and that kind of thing. All right, so I mean that's pretty much it. It's at least the basics and some ideas of what you can do with it. Really just p-lock everything and figure out what sounds good to you and how you think you can use this.